Hello, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, I'm going to be going over our entire B2B cold email process. And frankly, if you are a high-ticket B2B service-based business and you're not sending cold emails, you are simply losing out on too much revenue. But with that being said, let's just get right into it. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over literally everything. We're going to go over cold email infrastructure, lead list building, segmentation, offer creation. We're going to have a conversation about making it statistically impossible to fail. We're going to talk about market research and writing scripts that resonate, when to use all the different types of call to actions, case studies and social proof. We're going to talk about being creative with your outreach. We're going to talk about getting prospects to actually show up through landing page psychology, building confidence, and video sales letters. This is going to be a comprehensive video. I would not be surprised if this video ends up being 40, 50, even maybe an hour long. Okay. Now, I just want to show you guys this. This is why you should be listening to me. These are my credentials. I run a lead generation agency called Borks. We have done lead generation in almost every single industry, everything from getting pharmaceutical companies to investment bankers to agencies to manufacturing companies to everything that you can possibly think of. We've probably done it or at least know somebody that has, right? These are some pictures of our results. You can see right here, 50 interested leads, 169 interested leads, 48 interested leads, 99 interested leads. This is a picture of our calendar, 67 opportunities in a month. You can see right here, these are some of our smaller segmented campaigns. That's why you can see there's only 600 emails sent and 6 interested prospects, right? As we scroll down, you can see this is an interview with one of our clients. We ended up booking him 9 meetings in just 2 weeks, right? 2 of which ended up converting. With his LTV, it's going to be quite a big chunk of money. You could see some of our case studies here, right? All of these materials are on our landing page, but I'm just giving guys the credentials so you should know why potentially listening to me might be a good idea. Okay. But with all of that being said, let's just get right into it. Okay. So the first thing we have to talk about is cold email infrastructure. Now, for those of you who have watched my videos in the past, you know that I've talked a lot about private infrastructure on this channel, right? Now, the pros and cons of how to use it, everything that it has, like everything there is, right? I've talked about different providers, different use cases, everything. Right? But today, I'm going to do a full breakdown on private versus public infrastructure and what you should use and why it matters. Okay? So just to begin with, I'm going to go over what exactly those two are, just so everybody's aware. Now, public infrastructure ESPs, these are email service providers, are companies like Google, Outlook, Yahoo, Zoho, all of those companies, right? Just companies that are public. You probably heard about them, right? You probably have a Gmail account or an Outlook account, right? Those are public infrastructure providers. Now, private infrastructure providers are companies like Mailscale and Superwave. Now, you might not have heard of those providers, and we're going to talk about the differences, right? Now, public providers are typically large companies that you've already heard of. They're not specifically providing email accounts for you to go and do cold outreach with them. They're just general business accounts, right? Now, on the other hand, private providers are small companies that are creating infrastructure for the sole purpose of doing cold email and generating leads. Their only intended use case is cold outreach. Now, public infrastructure, we're going to talk about the pros and cons for both of them. Now, the pros and cons are as follows. The pros are that it's super reliable, right? Massive companies that own these ESPs, they're not going anywhere. Google isn't just going to shut off tomorrow, go out of business. Like, you can be sure that those ESPs are going to be around forever, okay? Now, it's also online 24/7, 365 days out of the year, right? You don't have to worry about Google server crashing and Google server going down. These are big companies and they have precautions to make sure these things never happen, okay? Now, and that is a real concern that we'll talk about later. They have better deliverability. Now, 90% of email accounts are either Google or Outlook, and Google and Outlook trusts other Google and Outlook accounts more than external ESPs, right? So hypothetically speaking, let's say you scrape a list and you want to email that list, right? 90% of the emails on that list are going to be either on Google or Outlook. Their emails are going to be hosted on either Google or Outlook. And if you're going to be messaging those Google accounts with your Google accounts and those Outlook accounts with your Outlook accounts, you are going to have better deliverability. This is a proven fact, right? And a lot of the popular sending tools like SmartLead and Instantly have ESP matching as a built-in feature, meaning they'll specifically assign the leads that are Google to specifically your Google email accounts and vice versa, meaning you're always getting the most out of your emails, okay? Now the cons. This is 3 to 4 times more expensive, right? It's still relatively cheap in the grand scheme of things, right? Because you're still going to make a lot of money with, with a very small investment, but it is three to four times more expensive than private infrastructure. Then 5 to 10 times longer to set up. Now, this is a big hassle at scale, right? Especially when you don't really know what you're doing. Setting up these email accounts is very difficult. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of troubleshooting. But again, that's just kind of part of the game, okay? And then another con is they don't actually want you doing cold email. Now, I'm sure you guys have already heard about this. Google, companies like Google, Yahoo, Outlook, they're all cracking down on cold email. They don't want you doing cold email. And I've made videos talking about why that is exactly, but in essence, it's just because, you could be spending that money on their advertising platform instead of on cold emails. So they don't really want you doing that. But anyways, now let's talk about private infrastructure. Now, private infrastructure is 3 to 4 times more cheaper, or 3 to 4 times less expensive. You could put it that way, right? If you're getting started, this is really going to make a difference because a lot of people don't have a ton of capital right up the front. It's 5 to 10 times faster to set up, and that isn't an exaggeration, right? With private infrastructure, you click purchase, boom, your emails are done, you import them, and you're ready to go, okay? Now, it is a lot faster. Another thing is they want you doing cold email, right? These companies exist for the sole purpose of you doing cold email, so they actually want you doing it, right? And obviously that helps because they're not trying to impose restrictions on what it is you're doing, okay? Now the cons. This one is pretty much the biggest con, and this is the reason why we don't use private infrastructure internally in the agency, and that's that it's not reliable. One person owns that entire company, and they can just straight up at any point in time turn off your business like that, and you're done, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? And it is a really serious concern. It's never happened to us before where we've been banned off a platform or anything like that. But in the back of your head as a business owner, you're always going to be sitting there and thinking that, your business can physically just be turned off. And that's just not a good way to run a business. Okay. Now, one of their servers can definitely crash or just stop working, right? This is kind of like the less intense version, right? They could just have an error on their end and all of a sudden your cold emails aren't sending and it's not even your fault and you can't do anything about it. Right? Now, if you're doing cold email for yourself, it might not be that big of a problem because you can wait a couple of days. But if you're in my position and you're managing 20, 30, 40 clients and all of their campaigns turn off and you have 20 people emailing you, sending you Slack messages asking what's going on, what is, give me an update, and you just don't know, that it's just not reliable. You can't do it. Even if it happens once a month or once a quarter, it just doesn't matter. We cannot be doing that for clients. So that's why we don't use it. But I'm going to talk about why maybe you should consider it. Okay. Now, worse deliverability and will deteriorate quicker. Now, with cold emails, there definitely is sending reputation, right? That's kind of what determines whether you're going to inbox or whether you're going to spam. One of the biggest contributors to that spam ranking is going to be who your email service provider is. Obviously, an external provider is going to have a lot less trust with a server than either Google or Outlook. So just keep that in mind when you're sending emails, especially for those of you who launch email campaigns in very specific industries. You might only have a list of 800, 900 leads at any given moment. So you really need to make sure that you have good deliverability because otherwise, you're going to go to spam, right? And then your entire outbound system lies in the hands of one company, right? For those of you who are only doing cold email for outbound, right? If cold email just stops working, like you're just done, right? And that's not a safe option, right? For us in the agency personally, we don't just do cold email. We get leads from inbound, from Twitter, from YouTube. We get leads from outbound Twitter, not just inbound Twitter. We get leads from a lot of different places. So if this happened to us, it would hurt us, but it wouldn't kill us. Right? But for those of you who, do cold email and that's your only channel, you cannot be taking a risk like this. Okay. Now, so the question arises, who should you be using? Now, I'd say it depends, right? Private infrastructure is going to be cheaper, faster, and easier to get started with, right? So I'd say personally, if you're just getting started with cold email and you just want to get it on a low cost, low barrier to entry, and you just want to get it started, just go with private infrastructure. Okay. Spend a couple $100, get it started, and just try it out, right? But on the other hand, if you're an agency owner and you have 10 plus clients and, that's your primary source of income and you really can't, mess around with that, then definitely use public infrastructure, right? Do not take the risks that you don't, need to be taking. It's much simpler to just spend the extra couple $1,000s a month and just pay to have something that's reliable rather than always be like on the edge of your seat wondering like, what if it goes offline, right? It's just not worth it. Okay. Now, the main reason why I say this isn't because of deliverability. Now, again, I've made videos in the past, talking about how good private infrastructure is, and I still do believe that. I think private infrastructure is amazing for people who are just trying to do cold email for themselves. Okay. But it's not the deliverability, it's not the cost, it's not the setup time. It is just solely the fact that there is a company out there that can just shut off your agency. And that'll never be okay with me personally, okay? I'm one of those people who I would much rather be safe than sorry. So I am not going to let like a situation like that arise just because I want to save an extra couple $1,000s a month, okay? So just keep that in mind, right? Now, just keep in mind that these private ESPs are not big, large corporations where there's a big decision-making process and you have to like really go through like a whole sequence of decision makers. No. At any point in time, they can just go out of business, or they can just stop working. They just decide to shut down the company, or they mess up something on a server, or there's an update that goes wrong, or something happens and it just turns off and you can't do anything about it. It might take them a week. It might take them a month. They might just quit the business. You never know. I mean, things have happened like that in the past. So it's not a good place to be if you're relying on that significantly. Now, in our personal agency, all of our clients are now on public infrastructure exclusively. We have tried a little bit in the past with private infrastructure, and it was a good experience. Nothing really wrong. I mean, we still have the same deliverability, same everything, but now we're sure that like nothing can ever happen, like, where our servers just turn off. Okay. But again, if you just want to send some cold emails for yourself or you're just getting started, then definitely consider private infrastructure. And I have 2 videos right here, which I'm going to link in this document or somewhere here in the top right. So if you are interested, just take a look. Okay. Now continuing. Now we're going to talk about lead list building. Now, lead list building is where the real experience in cold outreach shows. It is by far the most difficult and mentally draining aspect of doing any sort of outbound. Okay. Now, when you hear about these big agency owners that have years of experience and get phenomenal results, you can contribute 95% of those results to their ability to build good and targeted lead lists. And I'm going to give you guys some examples as we go on. Okay. Now, that's because there is no easy way or definitive way of building a lead list. There's not like a stand-in operating procedure. There's not like a way of doing it. It's different every single time. Okay. Now, lead list building is completely unique, right? For every single industry we do, for every single angle we do, and for every single segment we do, which we'll talk about all of that like later in the video, right? So I can't even show you exactly what we're doing, but I'm going to give you guys an overview, like a framework of how it works, just so you have somewhat of an idea. Okay. Now I'm going to open up this Lucid chart right here, and I'm going to take you guys through kind of like the overview process of launching a email campaign. Now, everything starts off at the top of funnel, which is where you're getting just the data. These are just going to be the websites of the companies that you're emailing, okay, or you're messaging. It doesn't have to be an email. Now, you can get this from a lot of different places. These are just some of the databases that we use, which include Apollo, BrandNav, StoreLeads, G2, Agency Vista, Snuff, Built with Wappalizer, AppSumo, TikTok Ads Library, LinkedIn Ads Library, Facebook Ads Library, Google, like literally just Google search results, right? Crunchbase, Klaviyo partners. This is an example of a segment we might do. If we're targeting, company, or if we're targeting marketing agencies that want to work with e-commerce brands, targeting Klaviyo partners might just be something that we're doing, right? And it's just depending on the segment. There's a lot of different things that we do, right? Clay, for some of our e-commerce clients, we scrape Amazon directly, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Shopify partners, ZoomInfo, SortList, Yelp, D7 Leads Finder, right? There are so many different options for going and finding these leads. You just need to know about them, and you just need to scrape them and go and do it, okay? So these are just some of the platforms we use. Now, when we scrape them from here, all we're getting is the websites where you don't have the decision maker's contact information, right? So we go to the next step of the process. The next step of the process is cleaning the website URLs. Now, what we do is we do 4 checks. We check whether the website is still active, right? Obviously, if the website's not active, the company's either out of business or whatever it might be, but no matter what, they're not qualified, okay? 2, we check whether the website is in English. We only do advertising in English markets, right? We don't do advertising in any other market, meaning if this website isn't in English, most likely speaking, they're not targeting English speaking people. So, we can't help them. And then 3, these next 2, we don't really do all the time. We do them sometimes depending on who we're doing it for, but sometimes we'll check whether the websites have social media profiles. And what I mean by this is any serious company, especially e-commerce, because e-commerce is one of the big industries that we work with, any serious e-commerce brand is going to have their social media profiles somewhere in their description. And I'll show you guys what I mean by that. Like if I just go to like Gymshark, for example, right? And I go to their website and I scroll all the way down. You see they have social media profiles here. We have a tool which can detect that and basically determine whether they do or don't have these social media profiles. And then based off that, we're able to determine whether they are or not a serious company, okay? And then we also check whether the website has any blacklisted subdomains, meaning if it's a My Shopify store, they're obviously not qualified for whatever we're trying to sell to them. So those are some of the data cleaning process we do. This is not like a set tool we use. This is just something custom that we have built internally, but that's how that looks. Then we use Apollo in order to actually find decision makers. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Apollo, it's just a sales database where you can find decision makers' contact information, but that's kind of what Apollo is. Now, with Apollo, we're able to give them a list of URLs, and they're going to go and company match those URLs, meaning if I give them Amazon.com, it's going to company match it to Amazon, and then I can see who works that company, okay? Meaning based off a URL, I can see who works there. Now, we do that. We find the employees, and then we add filters. And we'll go, and we'll filter by job title. CEO, COO, CMO, CBO, all like the relevant C-suites. Then owner, founder, operator, marketing, sales, business development, chair, head, president, executive, and so on, right? This is just like a short example, but we'll go and we'll put all the executive like titles. And by doing this, we're going to have all of the relevant ones. Now, after this is done, we export these leads and we take them to Million Verifier. And if, for those of you who don't know what Million Verifier is, it is a platform which allows you to SMTP verify email leads. Now, SMTP verifying email leads is the process of figuring out whether emails are valid or invalid before sending them an email. Now, for those of you who've ever sent an email to like the wrong address and it comes back like your email has bounced and it's like an error on Google or Outlook or whatever you use, you'll know what I mean by bouncing, right? Now, when you're sending cold emails at scale, if you keep getting emails that are bouncing, you're going to start going to spam because your ESP is going to start realizing that, and they're going to start saying like, a normal human, would only send an email to a person they know. So why is this person, sending so many emails to email addresses that don't exist? And therefore, you're going to hurt your deliverability and you're going to start going to spam. So what we do is we verify these emails using this tool, and we get back 3 types of emails: valid, risky, invalid. Valid, just as the name suggests, these are just emails ready to go. These are emails that are 100% valid, and we're going to email them. Risky are emails that are catch-alls in the technical term. Now, catch-all basically means that they could be valid, but they also could not be valid, and that you're going to have to do a deeper form of verification in order to really figure it out. Now, what we do is we set these aside for later, because when we figure out which segments work and which types of leads are doing the best, we'll actually go and pay to verify it, because it's a lot more expensive than Million Verifier, and then we'll get those leads. But for now, we just set them aside. And then invalid emails, we just add them to a database. These are just 100% invalid emails, and we add them to a database to make sure that we don't try to validate them again in the future, so we're not wasting any money, okay? That's how that works. Then we come here. Now, this is the data segmentation process. Now, I'm going to touch on this a lot more in depth later in the video, but I'm going to give a brief right now. Now, the whole concept of data segmentation is instead of having one big list, we have 5 small lists, right? And the best way that I can describe this is imagine you have an e-commerce company, you have a marketing agency that targets e-commerce companies, and you have a list of e-commerce companies and you want to do outreach to them. Instead of sending every single one of those e-commerce companies the same exact email, you can go and segment those e-commerce companies into different sections. So a part of them are going to be fitness companies, a part of them are going to be supplements, a part of them are going to be pet food and care, right? And you're going to write an individual script to every single one of them. And when they read that message, they're going to know that that email was intended for their industry rather than just a broad campaign, right? And that's kind of the concept of, going and getting segments. And this is kind of demonstrating what I mean. Each segment has its own message, and they're all pushing to the same offer, Okay. Now moving on. Then what we do is we actually have a data enhancement process. Now, this is the only step in the whole process where we use AI, and I'm going to touch on why that is later. But what we do is we enhance the company names. Now, a lot of the time when you do cold email and when you scrape from platforms like Apollo, they're going to have company names that are just not right. Like maybe like Borks LLC or Borks Inc. or Borks All Capital, or something like Borks Email Marketing since 1996, or like something like that. It's not just going to be the core company name. It's going to be something like accompanied with it. Or there's some weird signs like maybe Borks in quotations or something like that. So what we do is we use OpenAI's API, which is the company that made ChatGPT, to filter all of these things out to just Borks, right? And then once all of this is ready, we're ready to go to SmartLead, which is our sending tool, and get this whole process started. Now, again, this is just an overview, right? We haven't even talked about warm-up. We haven't even talked about all of the other processes, but as we go further in the video, you guys are going to see how that all looks. But let's continue, okay? Now, here are some real examples of lead list building processes that we've actually done for clients. Now, what I just showed you is the most simplified version that I can show you, right? Really, it's the most basic version. In reality, it's a lot more complicated than it seems, and I'm going to show you guys an example. Now, for example, we have a client who sells B2B services for corporate sales companies running LinkedIn ads. Now, that is very specific, right? They need to be actively running LinkedIn ads. They need to have between 50 to 200 employees. They must be in United States, United Kingdom, Canada, or Australia, and they must be a corporate sales company. Now, obviously, you can't just filter on Apollo or any database by just is running LinkedIn ads. That's just not how it works. So you're going to have to be creative in this situation, right? Now I'm going to show you guys the real approaches that we took to get this done, so you can kind of get in like the process of thinking on how to build these lists. Now the first approach was with Built With, right? Now I have another video on Built With, which I'll link somewhere here and somewhere in the bottom of this video, but let's just continue. Now Built With, just quick familiarizer, is a platform which lets you see a list of companies that are using a certain technology. So what we did in this situation is we looked at companies using the LinkedIn Ads Pixel, and obviously if they're using the LinkedIn Ads Pixel, it's very, very likely they're running LinkedIn ads, okay? But let's just get right into it. So we used Apollo to get a large list of United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and Australian-based corporate sales companies, right? Then we import them into Built With and create a technology matrix and select LinkedIn Ads Pixel users that are currently active, right? And what this means is instead of getting a list from Built With from the start, we're putting the list of corporate sales companies in directly and then just filtering them by the ones that are using the LinkedIn Ads Pixel, okay? Now, once we have that, we export them and we put them back into Apollo, right? That's where we filter based on employee count. And once we have that, we have a somewhat clean list. Then we take that, and we need to make sure that these are actually corporate sales companies. Now, for those of you guys who have used Apollo before, you know that their targeting is not the best. And a lot of the time, even though you might think you're targeting corporate sales companies, they're not actually. Now, what we do here is we use a custom tool in the agency. It's internal, doesn't have a name or anything. It's just a custom tool that we have to extract the HTML text content of the website and then use AI to determine whether the subject of the landing page is relevant to corporate sales. Now, what I mean by this is we use a tool which can literally go on a website, like for example, Borks.io, this is our landing page, and get all of this text. It'll copy this text, it'll copy this text, it'll come and copy this text, it'll take all of this text, right, everything that's on a landing page, and it'll feed it into an AI, and it'll ask the AI, do you think this text has something to do with corporate sales? And if the AI thinks that it does, then the lead comes through. If it doesn't, then it is skipped. Now, obviously, if you put in my website and you asked, do you think this has something to do with lead generation? The AI will obviously know that it does because it has a lot of stuff to do with lead generation on it. But if you put a different website, which is completely not relevant to lead generation, the AI would automatically know that no, there's nothing to do with lead generation on that website. Okay? And that's just one of the filtering things that we do. Then we immediately filter out the non-active and non-English websites, right? That's what I told you guys about earlier. And then we bring that data back to Apollo and now get decision makers. So all up until here, we were just getting websites. Now that we have the websites, we put them back into Apollo again and get the decision makers. We get the decision makers, and then we take them into the SMTP verification tool to get their decision makers. Then once we have that, we take it out again, enhance the data with AI, and that list is ready, right? And that's how that works. It's a very lengthy process, right? There's a lot of different steps, but that's what it takes in order to build lead lists that are as high intent as what this client wants, okay? Now, here's another approach that we took. You can go on a platform called Appify. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, Appify is just a platform where you can run scrapers, and we rent an actor, which is what their scrapers are called, to scrape the LinkedIn ads library. Now, obviously, that's probably the most common thing that you can think of is just to go on the LinkedIn ads library and just scrape directly. Now, what we'll do is we'll scrape all of the companies that meet the corporate sales search. Now, since there's going to be hundreds of thousands of leads, we have another custom tool which is able to compile which one of those are on Apollo. And literally all this tool does is it goes on Apollo, it enters a list of say 5,000 websites, and then it just returns the ones that actually came up on Apollo, right? Because for those of you who know, you can't just put in 100,000 websites into Apollo directly. It's just not going to let you do that. You can put in max 5 to 7K. So instead of going and manually doing that, we have a tool which will take, say, 500,000 companies, put them into Apollo, return all of the ones that are valid, and it'll probably only be like 30, 40K valid ones, and then only apply all of the other data scraping functions on those 30 to 40K, which makes the process of doing all of this so much faster, okay? Then once we have that, we put them into Apollo, we add the headcount and location filters, we SMTP verify and enhance the company names, and our list is finally ready. And that's what it took to make this list. Now, I have a lot of videos on lead list building. This subject isn't something I can just cover in one video, right? I have 4 videos just here alone. So if you are interested in learning about that, especially if, about built with, then you can go here, watch this video, get some value. And I'm going to have that video somewhere in this document and somewhere here in the top right. But with that being said, let's just go on to the next slide. The next thing we want to talk about is segmentation and personalization. Now, to preface this section, I just want to let everybody know that I have a hot take that a lot of people who are in this industry don't really believe in and are very against, right? And that's that we do not use any AI in our script writing process. Now, as you all already know, AI is the new hot thing, right? Every single industry is trying to adopt it. They're trying to push AI where AI just doesn't belong. And it's just kind of a matter of just hype. That's all it is. AI is hype, right? Now, the cold outbound industry is definitely one of those industries. And the thing is that at the current stage of AI, you're not actually going to get a response from it, which seems like it's from a human, okay? Now, unless your target ideal client profile actually just lives under a rock and has never heard of ChatGPT before, you're most likely going to do more harm than good by trying to make AI personalized first lines, right? By trying to use AI in your outreach, okay? Now, reason being is a lot of the time, all these AIs are fed is information from your LinkedIn. And all they're going to do is they're going to give some cliche and ingenuine compliment about either the school you went to or the company that you work at. And it's just going to make people not want to respond. And I mean, think about it. The whole point of personalization is to make people think that you did research into them. If they're going to get the impression that you not only did not do research, but you actually did the opposite, which is specifically try to make them think that, they're just not going to want to work with you, right? And here's an example of an AI first line. And before everybody tries, goes crazy in the comments, obviously, if you try to go into this and you try to engineer the prompt better, you might get a better response out of ChatGPT. But this is just an example, right? Somebody's going to do something like this. Write me a short 2 to 3 sentence compliment that'll make my email feel personalized. This email is going to Georgie, the founder of a cold email consulting firm. He has LinkedIn, and I'm cold emailing him about selling him my service. Now, if someone emailed me this and said, Georgie, your pioneering approach in the cold email consulting space has truly set a benchmark for excellence, showcasing your remarkable ability to innovate and lead, I would literally stop reading the email right there and then. I would never respond to that, right? And again, I understand you can make it better, you can engineer it, but in the end of the day, it's going to sound something like that, and it's just not going to seem genuine, and you're just going to hurt yourself, right? We've split tested this a lot in the agency, so we know for a fact that you're not going to get better responses doing replies like this than you are if you were to just segment, okay? And we're going to talk about what segmentation is right now. Now, the whole point of personalized outreach is to make the person reading the email really think that your service is meant for them and not just any general business. Okay. Now, people would much rather work with a specialist than a generalist in any industry that they might be in, especially when it comes to marketing and revenue operations. Okay. Now, at the agency, we always segment based on either industry, job title, or technology. And those are just the most common, but we do other ones, right? So an example, right? We work with a lot of e-commerce marketing agencies. It's one of our best performing industries, and that's just one of the things that we excel at. And a lot of the time, these e-commerce marketing agencies have case studies in very specific niches. Okay. Now, right away, the first segment that we're going to launch is going to be the industries and where those clients have case studies in. So, for example, one of our clients, he actually manages 9-figure brands on Amazon, and he has exceptional case studies in supplements, pet food, and women's skincare. Now, obviously, there's only going to be so many supplements, pet food, and women's skincare companies, but if we're going to approach one of these companies and we're going to say, hey, I helped this brand who's your competitor, right, scale up and make tens of millions of dollars on Amazon, and I can help you do the same thing, the odds of that person wanting to work with you are going to be extremely high. So those are segments that we're going to run right away, right off the bat. Okay. Now, as you can imagine, those three industries are extremely different, right? Pet food and women's skincare. Like, you don't write an email to a women's skincare company and a pet food company the same way, right? You obviously speak differently. So that's why we segment based on industry for this particular client. Now, for the supplement segment, we're going to send an email something like this. And again, this isn't a real email we're running. This is just an example. I would never show a real email that we're running in the current moment just for the privacy of our client. But take a look at this. So imagine this email is going to John, the founder of a supplements company. Hey, John, my gym buddy recently let me try one of your creatine tubs, and I was shocked. I used to get my stuff from First Form, and your stuff is so much better. I tried going on Amazon to buy a tub for myself, and I noticed you guys weren't actually on there. Small world, but I actually help brands get on Amazon so they can reach 300 million plus buyers monthly without spending a dime on ads. We helped another creatine company just like yours add an extra $10 million in annual revenue, and I'm pretty sure we can do the same thing for you. You mind if I send over a 19-minute video showing how? Now, first of all, I think that's an amazing email, but let's go through that. No AI right now will ever write an email that is going to be that personalized. You can just tell a real person wrote that, okay? Now, that email literally goes over an exact product that this person is most likely selling. They mention a competitor, they mention a pain point, and a solution, and immediately free value. Like, just imagine you are John, and you see this, and you say, okay, well, you're going to read that first line and you're going to immediately think I'm a potential customer because I mentioned First Form, which is a company that also sells creatine tubs, and I'm complimenting their product. Then it's a pain point. They aren't on Amazon. Then it's, okay, wow, like I should be on Amazon. There's 300 million plus buyers. Then it's, oh, wow, like other companies that are my competitors have already done that. Okay, well, now I kind of want to do it. And then an immediate solution to them, right? Can I send over a video showing on how you can, right? There's no reason why somebody would say no to this, right? And when you get them into an offer like this, the odds of them ending up going and booking a call are drastically higher, okay? Now, it's not a surprise that when John reads this email, he's going to be very enticed to hear my client out. And that's exactly how segmentation works, right? Instead of having one big list of mixed e-commerce companies, you have a list of specifically women's clothing, specifically food or pet food, specifically supplements, specifically men's gym attire, and so on, right? And you're able to directly mention certain things that'll very, very, very highly increase your conversion rate because it's going to seem personalized, but not personalized with an ingenuine compliment, by personalized by real market relevance, okay? Now, every single one of those segments that I just talked about will get its own sequence with its own follow-up and everything on its own. Now, for those of you who are thinking that this is probably like 10 times more work than launching a general list, you're totally right. 100% right. This takes so much more effort and time, but it is simply what it takes to get top 1% results. There's not another way around it. If you want to stand out in the inbox, you need to put an unproportionate quantity of effort into your outreach, and that's exactly what we do. Okay? Now moving on. Now, offer creation. This is going to be the most important part of this entire video. And that's because if you have a bad offer, you do not have to worry about anything else in this video because it won't matter. If you have a bad offer, you are guaranteed to fail right from the start. Okay? Now let's get into why that is. Now, a popular mistake people make is they try offering the same offer they give to a warm audience to a cold audience, and then they're surprised, why isn't it working? Now, look, guys, I'm going to give you an example. We have clients that manage to scale their service-based business to over $100,000 a month in monthly, or just in a month, right? With just inbound and referrals, meaning, just so we're on the same page, 100K MRR without running a single ad, without sending a single email, without sending a single DM. And that's just the result of having a really good service. But now they want to scale and they're kind of lost, okay? Now, when you have a prospect coming to you from an inbound channel or a referral, they are already very, very warm on your offer. They're kind of pre-sold, if you want to call them that, okay? They don't need to be convinced as much as someone who doesn't know you or doesn't know your business at all, right? Now, when you have an offer like that, that is different to giving the same offer to a cold prospect, okay? If someone's coming to you from a referral and, they already know you know what you're doing, they'll probably be a lot more open to paying a setup fee and paying a retainer and paying a lot of these things because they trust you. But someone who's cold, who doesn't know you, doesn't trust you, is not going to do the same thing, okay? Now, offers and social proof are going to work very closely together in this situation. If you have a lot of social proof, but a bad offer, that could work. If you have no social proof, but a good offer, that could also work. If you have no social proof and a bad offer, that's just not working. You're just wasting your time. And then on the contrary, if you have a lot of social proof and a good offer, you're going to start raking it in, right? If you have both, that's great. If you have one, that's okay. If you have neither, you're done. You're not getting results, okay? Now, a good offer is defined by the type of offer which promises a large monetary result with minimal, if not no risk. Monetary, money. You need to save the money or make the money. No other metric is as good as money, okay? Now, here's some examples of good offers. We help DTC e-commerce brands drop their CPR by at least 30% in 8 weeks using our Front Flex outreach strategy, or you don't pay a dime. Another example, we help B2B SaaS companies acquire 3 to 5 new enterprise clients every single month using our higher intent PPC strategy, or you don't pay. Okay. Now, here are some examples of terrible offers. We help local plumbers get a high converting website. Terrible. We help e-commerce companies run stunning Facebook ads. Also terrible. Now, notice how the two first offers directly call out a specific niche of a business. It's not just e-commerce and it's not just SaaS. It is specifically DTC e-commerce brands. It is specifically B2B SaaS companies, right? You need to be specific with who you help, because when someone reads that and they're from a DTC e-commerce brand, they're going to know that it's meant for them, okay? Now, the value proposition is directly correlated to real revenue generating results, right? Now, for those of you who don't know, CPR is cost per result. If you drop the cost per result by at least 30% in 2 months for an e-commerce company, that means that they're acquiring clients at 30% cheaper, right? That would literally change an e-commerce business. And there are people out there who can genuinely do that, okay? And acquiring 3 to 5 new enterprise clients is very, very monetary, right? If you know that, okay, one enterprise client is $10,000 a month, 3 to 5 new enterprise clients is $30,000 to $50,000 a month. These aren't vanity metrics. It's cash generated. It's a real metric. People understand what you're talking about when you speak like this. Okay. Then the timeline is clear from the start, right? If you remove all of the uncertainty from making a decision, no one will have to think about it. This is one of those things. When you say within 8 weeks or every month, people know exactly how much time it'll take to achieve said result. Okay. And that's going to make a big difference, because when everything is clear, there is no reason for them not to want to work with you. And then the unique mechanism is stated as the front flex outreach strategy or the high intent PPC strategy. This is just words. It doesn't mean anything, right? And what this means, or the whole point of a unique mechanism, is in order to make someone think that the way you're doing things is unique to how everybody else is doing things. Now imagine this exact example. Imagine an agency had already worked with another marketing company, an e-commerce brand has already worked with another agency who promised to get them a result. And then let's say they promised to run their Facebook ads and it didn't work out. They did bad results and they ended up churning. That agency is going to have a bad taste in their mouth about running ads again. But when you approach them and you say that it's the front flex strategy and it's this new innovative thing, right? They're going to think that what you're doing is different from what everybody else is doing, and it's different from that agency who couldn't get results. And they're going to give you a chance, okay? That's the concept. Now notice how the last 2 offers, we didn't really get personalized with who the service was for. Just local plumber or e-com company. All right, that's boring, right? Like a plumber isn't going to be surprised that you segmented specifically to them. They're just a plumber, right? Just every other plumber, okay? So it's not personalized. The value proposition is also hard to understand, and the return on investment is not immediately apparent. Nobody cares about a high converting website. Literally not a single person on this earth wants a high converting website. And not a single person on this earth wants stunning Facebook ads. They want revenue. Nobody is in business to have a cool website. People are in business to generate money. And if you're not promising a return over investment, you don't do a good service, right? Nobody cares about Facebook ads. They care about money, okay? Then no timeline is mentioned, right? Even if someone does want stunning Facebook ads, they don't want stunning Facebook ads in 10 years. They want stunning Facebook ads right now. And you not mentioning a timeline, you're just kicking yourself right in the foot, because you're not mentioning a timeline, okay? And then there is no unique mechanism. You're going to come off as every other website developer or media buyer, right? You're not the only one selling Facebook ads. You're not the only one selling website development services. There's tons of people like that. And if you come off as everybody else, it's just a random choice. Why would they go with you over somebody else, right? You don't want that. You don't want to be running a business off random choice. You want to be running a business off hard, solid facts, okay? Now, a big portion of people will be thinking, well, that sounds good in theory, but I can't promise all these things. Now, this is where the concept of stipulations come in. Now, a stipulation is a contingency in the contract that must be met in order for someone to qualify for a guarantee. Now, the idea is you define clearly everything you need in order to get some sort of desired result, and then make a client legally agree to doing these things in a contract. For example, imagine you sign a contract with a fitness trainer who guarantees to get you fit. The only stipulations are that you must go to the gym 5 days a week. You must only eat healthy meals 90% of the time. You must listen to all of his workout recommendations. Every single set must be until absolute failure. You must do cardio and weight training every single day. And you must commit for at least 1 year consistently. If you do those 6 things, you will 100% guarantee to get fit. There is literally not a single possibility on earth that you do all of these things and you don't get fit. Because it's really that simple. You put in these inputs and you get out these outputs. So as a fitness coach, a fitness coach cannot force you to work out. But if he gives you the information and the intellectual things needed and you fulfill upon them, you will get your desired result. Okay. And that's how you want to position your offer, right? You want to position your offer in a way where if you do the things that I tell you to do, you will get this desired result. And if you do that, you will sign clients without a problem. Okay. So if you know deep down that your services are only really going to work for people doing a certain revenue range or that have a certain headcount or they use a certain technology, you need to offer this service to only those people. Stop trying to sell everybody, right? You are going to kill your business like that. Do not just work with anybody who's willing to pay you. You need to work with the types of people you know you can get results for, because that's how you're going to make the most amount of money in the long term. Okay? Now, if you offer the right guarantee with the right stipulations to the right prospect, they're going to say yes. It's common sense, right? It's common sense. Now, having an offer like this is only mandatory if you have no case studies. Once you start to have a good amount of social proof, you could stray away from guarantees. But again, you don't have to. Even in our agency, we've already gone on to help hundreds of different people from tons of different industries, right? We've targeted everybody from e-com to pharma brands to investment bankers to info product operators to everything in between. And we still, at the time of recording this video, offer a commission-based offer on a pay-per-qualified call basis, meaning you're only paying us when we book you a qualified call. And that is simply because we are confident that we can deliver if we get on the phone with the right type of prospect. And if you're seeing this video, you might be the right type of prospect, okay? Now, again, just like segmentation, offers is one of those things that is very, very, very extensive of a subject. If you want to learn more, click out this video. It's going to be, again, somewhere in the top right or in this document. So just take a look, okay? Now, we're going to talk about making it statistically impossible to fail. Now, our goal in the agency is to send tons of very good cold outbound emails. Now, a lot of people think that it is either volume or it's quality. For some reason, people think it's always one or the other. It's never both, right? Now, our goal is to make it both. That is what we want to be doing in the agency. Now, for the sake of the example, I'm actually going to say that you are not getting exceptional results. We're going to run through the numbers just purely based off volume. And this is under the circumstances. You're getting bad results, how you're still going to manage to sign clients, okay? So let's just run the numbers. Now, personally, in our agency, we start off all of our clients at 25 domains, 50 email accounts. We send 40 emails per day, per email account when everything is scaled up. That is 2,000 emails per day. There are 21 sending days because there's only Monday through Friday, and then we exclude major holidays out of the month. That is 42,000 emails per month. 50% of our emails are cold emails. 50% of our emails are follow-ups. Now, 21,000 emails is how much we're going to be sending to new prospects every single month because it's half of 42,000. 21,000 emails at a 50% open rate, which is lower than average, is going to be 10,500 open emails. 10,500 open emails at a 10% reply rate, which is below average for us, is 1,050 responses. 1,050 responses at a 10% interested rate, which is again below average for us, is 105 interested prospects. 105 interested prospects at a 20% booking rate, which is typically 50 to 80% because of the funnel that we use, is going to be 21 booked meetings. 21 booked meetings at a 75% show-up rate, which is typical for our clients because, again, it's the funnel. They're warm prospects. okay, is 15 meetings a month. 15 meetings a month at a 20% closing rate, which is far lower than what our clients are doing, again, because of our funnel, is going to be 3 new clients per month. We're rounding down almost every possible metric like there is, and through sheer volume alone, you are still having a profitable funnel, okay? Now imagine what could happen when you don't round these numbers down. And these are some pictures of our actual campaigns that we're running for some of our clients. Look at the interested reply rate. 22%, 29%, 61%, 11%, 27%, 8%, 27%, 13%. We said 10. For the reply rate, I believe I said 10%. Let's see. 10% reply rate. Our actual reply rates, 6%, 3.6%, 13%, 10%, 6%, 2.9%, 7.5%, 6.6%, 4.5%, 5.62%, 7%. You could see that 10% is actually something that's possible, right? And when you go and you look at all of these numbers on an actual realistic scale with sheer volume alone, you're already making a decent amount of money. But when you combine that with personalized and relevant outreach, it's going to get even better. Okay? Now let's continue. So, market research and writing scripts that resonate. Now, nobody wants to be the first to try your service. Nobody wants to be the guinea pig. And if your scripts make your prospect think that you're not an absolute expert in the industry that they're trying to work with you with, they're not going to be interested. Okay, so the next section, market research and writing scripts that resonate. Now, nobody wants to be the first to try your service for obvious reasons, right? Nobody wants to be the guinea pig, right? And if your scripts are going to make your prospects think that you're not an absolute sheer expert in their industry, they're not going to be interested in working with you, right? It's pretty simple. Nobody wants to be tested on. That's why you need to be able to effectively do market research to identify industry jargon and know how your prospects are speaking. For example, for those of you who don't already know, I used to run a social media marketing company that helped HVAC companies get more leads. Now, here are some examples of things that I've learned from just pure experience that I would have to otherwise do market research on. HVAC companies want system replacements and installations. That's the name of the thing that they're looking for. HVAC companies don't like Angie's List, Home Advisor, or Thumbtack. Those are pay-per call platforms that they hate. HVAC companies don't like pay-per-call deals, period. One of the main pain points HVAC businesses have is seasonality, right? During the summer, they have a lot of business. During the winter, they don't have so much business. Another thing, they're constantly either overstaffed or understaffed, right? This goes back to the seasonality. They do not deal with window units. No HVAC company that is serious is ever going to do window units. Government grants and rebates make a big impact on the final sale of a system. The efficiency of an HVAC system is measured in tons. Condensers are outside and furnaces are inside. Energy efficiency is typically measured by a SEER rating. Now, if you approach an HVAC business owner and you mention these things in your outreach, they will immediately know that you are a specialist in the industry. Now, just imagine you did lead generation for an HVAC company and you split tested these two scripts. Script number 1. Hey, would you be interested in getting more clients for your HVAC business? Or, hey, have you guys tried running Google ads? It's far better than Angie's List or Home Advisor, and you don't pay per call. Google can help you get steady lead flow to help during the winter. A ton of people need high SEER systems during the winter, and they have government grants and rebates available right now. Which script do you think is going to do? Which script do you think is going to do better? Obviously, the second one. There is so much industry-specific information in that short script. They are immediately going to know you know what you're talking about. Okay. Another question arises. How exactly do you do market research? And honestly, this is one of those things where there simply isn't a definitive answer. It is not like there's going to be a standard operating procedure for doing market research. right? But a good place to start is to just get a list of questions down and just start hammering away on Google and ChatGPT to answer one by one by one. Now, after enough hours, you're going to start picking up on the keywords and the language that your prospects are using. Now, in our agency, most of the industry jargon and very niche specific knowledge is provided directly by our clients because they are directly the ones that are pros in that industry, right? So if I know that these are the words and these are the things and these are the things that my prospects like and these are the things that my prospects don't like and these are the words that they use and this is the terminology they use, I can write scripts that are going to be so much more relevant and they're going to get so much more results, and it's just going to be a landslide in difference, okay? Now, they won't know the industry jargon, and without that, there's no way you're going to write good scripts, right? This is another reason why we don't work with people just getting started, right? We do not work with any agency that has not been around for at least a little, I'm not going to say the exact qualification parameters, but we have internally specific things that we look for in an agency before we decide whether we want to work with them, right? So this is one of those things. If an agency hasn't been around for long, we know that they're not going to know industry jargon. And if they don't know industry jargon, the scripts aren't going to resonate and we're not going to get results. And since we're on a paper qualified call basis, we just do not work with these people. Okay, but moving on. Now, there's different types of call to actions. Now, call to actions are often a neglected part of the outreach campaign. People write their call to actions around their scripts. They choose an angle, an audience, and an offer, and before they know it, the call to action, and after all that, the call to action. Now, that is not the right way to be doing this, right? You should always be writing your script around the call to action and not the other way around, okay? A call to action is what you want people to do after they've consumed one of your assets. Okay, so if I send them an email and the call to action is that the call to action would be what I want them to do after reading my email. It could be book a call, it could be watch a video, it could be for a document, whatever it might be. That's what the call to action is. It's what you want them to do after they've consumed one of your assets. Okay, now in order to understand how to craft an effective call to action, you need to understand the concept of commitment levels and awareness levels. Now, I'm not going to go into deeply what they are in this video since I've already made a video on this in the past. But if you are interested in learning deeply about commitment levels and awareness levels, then you can take a look at these two, but I'll briefly explain it in this video, okay? Now, the 5 levels of awareness include the unaware, the problem aware, the solution aware, the product aware, and the most aware. Now, awareness levels measure how aware someone is about a particular problem in their life or in their business. Commitment levels measure how much time, money, and energy a person is willing to exert in order to try to solve that particular problem. Now, obviously, they're correlated with each other. The more aware someone is about a problem, the more committed they are to solving a problem. Now, whenever you make an offer to an unaware prospect, you need to give them a low commitment offer. Whenever you make an offer to a super aware prospect, you can give them a high commitment offer. Now, mind you, can is bolded for a reason. You don't have to do it. A low awareness or a high awareness prospect being given a low commitment offer is still going to do very well. Okay. Now, the core concept behind commitment aware outreach is to only ask of a person what is appropriate to ask of them. Meaning, if it's a cold prospect, do not ask them to book a meeting right away, right? That doesn't make sense. If they are a hot prospect, on the other hand, then you can ask them to book a meeting right away, right? This means that we need to create a call to action that resonates with the prospects that we're getting in contact with. Now, unless you happen to own a multi-billion-dollar, globally recognized service-based business, you're probably not just going to be automatically known by the people you're emailing. So you're going to need to give them a low awareness offer, right? Or a low commitment offer. Okay. Now, some sort of asset, video, or document will drastically increase the odds of a prospect saying yes to you, right? Or on the contrary, just offering them a call. Now, again, I'm not going to go into it very deeply in this video, but if you are interested, you can just watch these 2 videos here. Okay. Now let's move forward. So, case studies and social proof, right? Let's talk about it. Now, everybody knows that case studies and social proof are the most needle-pushing assets that you can have when it comes to closing clients. Now, there is a direct correlation between your closing rate and the quantity of case studies that you have. Okay. Now, for those of you who are newer agency owners, you probably know that getting case studies takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, right? And you can't necessarily speed up the process. It just takes time. Okay. Now, for the most part, that is true, but case studies aren't the only form of social proof, right? I want to touch on what sales assets are and why they matter and why you should be making them. Okay. Now, by definition, a sales asset is just any asset that can help you sell your product or service, okay? Now, it can be a video, a document, or any other type of media, but it doesn't really matter. The whole point of it is for it to be valuable, okay? Now, it's meant to help you establish yourself as an authority and a figure of trust. Now, with enough sales assets, people will actually start believing that you know what you're talking about and that you are an authority in whatever it is you're posting about. Okay. Now, if you haven't already guessed, this video and this document you're looking at is actually a sales asset within itself. Now, just ask yourself, has the material that I've gone over throughout this video and throughout this document at least slightly convinced you that I know at least a little bit about what I'm talking about, right? And most likely speaking, it has, right? I've gone through a lot of material here. I put a lot of effort into this. So most likely speaking, you now see that I know what I'm talking about, okay? Now, besides creating these sorts of assets to get inbound leads, to get, social media following, to grow your personal brand, besides all of those things, which is one of the use cases, you can also use these assets for outbound outreach, right? Now, that's the reason why we're talking about it here, because you need to be making these sorts of assets. Now, offering someone a sales asset in the first message, right, can be a great way to prove to them that you know what you're talking about and you are worth hearing out, okay? Now, especially if you go and you make a video, right, they'll get to see your face, they'll get to hear your voice, they'll get to associate you with being a real person, right, rather than just, another person on the other side of the email, right? You actually establish your company and you establish yourself, which builds credibility and trust. And if you make your sales asset good, right, now they trust you, now they like you, and now they want to work with you. And that's kind of the whole point of it, okay? Now, when it comes to revenue generation, it's all a matter of trust, right? You could be the best in the entire world at whatever it is you do, but if nobody believes you, it really just doesn't matter, okay? So that's exactly why everyone says that you need more testimonials and social proof, right? But since testimonials take time, in the meanwhile, you can work on sales assets. And as time goes on and you stack both testimonials and sales assets, you're going to start to become a thought leader in your industry. Meaning, like, let's hypothetically say, you tweet about SEO and you talk about SEO and you make, sales assets about SEO. If somebody needs SEO and they've been seeing your content for a year, the first person they're going to think about is you. And that's what it means to become a thought leader. People start to associate you with a certain industry, right? And that's kind of how that works. But let's continue. So, one of the last sections that I want to talk about is being creative with your outreach. Now, although I try my best to really show everything I can in these videos, the biggest part about doing any cold outbound outreach is creativity. Okay. Now, you can always copy an angle and it actually might just work. You might just get lucky, find an angle that's working, copy it, and make some money. Okay. But just like all of the angles before it and all of the angles after it, at one point, it'll die, it'll dry up, and you'll be left looking for the next angle, and you're not going to know when it is that you're going to find the next angle. Okay. Now, the real pros in cold outreach are creative. They're able to come up with creative offers, creative angles, creative things to do in their outreach to set them apart from everybody else. And that's what makes people, get results sometimes and not get results other times, right? That's what makes you a pro, being able to, be creative in something like this, right? And although there isn't an exact guide on how to become more creative, right, for obvious reasons, I can try to give you more ideas by giving you real life examples on how you can improve at outreach. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, we ran a cold email campaign for the agency internally where we targeted companies on Clutch.co. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar, Clutch.co is a database of a bunch of different agencies. Now, it is not a sales platform. It's not meant to be used the way that I was using it, right? Clutch.co makes their money on a pay-per-click basis, meaning they connect business owners who are looking for a particular service with agencies that provide that particular service. And whenever that business owner clicks on that agency's profile, that agency is charged a pay-per-click rate. Now, that's obviously not an ideal method of doing business, since even if someone clicks on your profile by accident, you're still paying for that. So that's why we ran a campaign where we targeted agencies that are listed on Clutch and offer to take them from pay-per-click to pay-per-qualified call, which is our offer. And it went great, right? We ended up closing 4 clients, paid in full, like none of this like nonsense that people do, like paid in full clients from just a mere 2,500 leads, right? Now that is a client for every 625 emails that we sent. So we're pretty happy with the results that we ended up getting. Now you'll never be able to achieve something like that if you're going to be doing what everybody else is doing. Okay? Those results are a lot better than average. Okay, so if you want to get results that are going to be amazing, you're going to have to do outreach that is going to come off as amazing. Okay, and that's why creativity matters. This is a short section just because there's not much I can say. Like, I can't teach you guys how to be creative. I can just give you examples on how we've done creative outreach and explain to you the importance. But really, creativity is just the result of a lot of work, constant hours, and it will come to you if you just do this for long enough. Okay. Now, if you are interested in seeing more about that Clutch campaign, I'll link a video below. I ended up documenting everything in that process. We documented the entire cold email sequence to the actual sales call with one of the prospects, to the funnel that we used to close them, to us collecting the money, to us scheduling the onboarding, everything. You literally see my agency sending a cold email and turning that person into a cash upfront collected client. So if that is something you're interested in, you can take a look at this video, but moving on to the next section. Now, the final section is getting the prospect to actually show up. Now, believe it or not, a lot of people still think that landing pages are quote unquote vanity assets and their sole purpose is just to have it. This couldn't be further from the truth. Having a good landing page and a good video sales letter is the difference between you closing at a 10% rate and you closing at a 50% rate, right? And that's also the difference between you booking 1 call a week and 10 calls a week, right? A good landing page really, really, really makes a big difference, and you need to make sure that you have a good landing page. Now, just so you guys know, a good landing page is not a landing page that has a beautiful design. It's not a landing page that is nice to look at. It's a landing page that has the appropriate things on it, including social proof and case studies, which is going to instill confidence in the people who are booking calls with you, okay? Now, just think about it. Imagine you book a call with somebody. Is your next step going to be completely forgetting about it until the meeting date or time? No, you're not going to do that. What you're going to do is you're going to book a call and then you're going to stalk this company online to make sure that this is someone who you should trust, right? You're going to search them up, watch some of their content, read their reviews, and so on. You're going to go on their website. You're going to take a look at their case studies, sales assets. You're going to click around the landing page, right? And after consuming all of those assets, you're going to start to build an opinion on the company before they've even had contact with you, right? And humans are very, very impressionable creatures. And once they've made an opinion about you, right, it's going to be very hard to change. And if somebody shows up to the sales call and off the bat, their first, default is to not trust you, you're going to need to be a top-notch salesperson to even have a chance of changing their mind and getting them to say yes. Okay? But now, on the other hand, if a person consumes all of your assets and mentally determines that you know what you're talking about and that you're a definitive pro, they're going to show up to the sales call pretty much half closed. And that's what we like to call lay down closes, right? Now, again, if you do all of these things, it's only going to work if you do them right, right? Having a landing page alone won't get you results. You need to have a good landing page, Okay. Now, for all of our clients in the agency internally, we set up landing pages for them on their behalf, right? Now, I'm going to use the landing page of Borks to portray the style and layout of landing page that we usually do, just because it's pretty much the same thing. Okay. Now we get started right off the bat. We point off who we're targeting. This is the hero page. We point off who we're targeting, which is B2B service-based companies. We say exactly what we do, which is create scalable and predictable customer acquisition systems. We add context to why it matters, which is the subheader, which is this right here. If you cannot purchase a client profitably, you do not own a business, and so on, right? And then finally, we give them a call to action, which is get a free outbound call. Now we go down, social proof. 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 Then we explain our process and use industry jargon to prove we know the market, mention some pain points, provide some more information on how everything works, then social proof, then social proof, then social proof, then social proof. Then one final call to action. Now, I think you guys are going to understand, just based on that very quick walkthrough, what matters on a website more than anything. It is social proof. You need to prove to your clients and to your prospects that you know what you're talking about, so they'll actually believe you. And really all it comes down to is case studies and a ton of assets that are really, really good. But anyways, that combined with some industry jargon and the answer to common objections, and you have a high converting landing page that will actually bring in people who are ready to work with you. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, like and subscribe, and we'll go from there.